Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is the fantasy movie review and I'll be having a look at the movie ARN the Knight Templar. So this is the biggest film ever to come out of Sweden in regards to production values by the time I'm doing this video, or one of the biggest at least, and is a sort of sprawling historical style epic, the likes of sort of Braveheart. Now the character is actually a fictional character, so I do sort of throw it under the banner of fantasy rather than a historical film. But it plays very much like a historical film rather than a fantasy, so it's very like real world, if that makes sense. And obviously ARN is the title character, and we see him from a young age, and he's kind of this young lad who is given to a monastery to sort of be brought up by them, and there he's kind of taught by this monk who used to be a Knights Templar the ways of combat with various means, as well as educating himself intellectually, learning to read and write all these different languages and whatnot. We cut to a little bit later on in his kind of, I guess, probably mid-20s or so, and he kind of meets this girl and ultimately falls in love with her. The problem is she's betrothed to someone from a rival clan, from his original sort of parents and stuff, and that causes trouble along with a few other things. And ultimately, they have this sort of torrid love affair which is kind of forbidden, and she ends up getting pregnant. Her name's Cecilia, and the kind of church decree that they're basically sinners because they've kind of got pregnant through out of wedlock ultimately, and have to pay penance. And the central story is I have to say, is probably the romantic love story between those two. That's kind of the overreaching story here, because she gets nearly as much screen time as him, and that's the theme of the whole sort of film ultimately, really, rather than a kind of action war film, so to speak. She gets sent to a convent for 20 years to pay penance, whilst he gets shipped off to the Holy Land as a Knights Templar to serve there. And I guess the bulk of the film takes place there, and there we have various conflicts and sort of interactions with different characters, including kind of the leader of the opposing forces, who has a kind of a bit of a mutual respect for they have a kind of meeting and end up sort of not becoming friends exactly, but they have an understanding and have a bit of a mutual respect, which comes into play as a plot point a bit later on in the film. And there we have we have a couple of battle scenes and things like that, and he has a kind of a rival within the Knights Templar. And the kind of the last portion of the film is his return home, back to sort of try and reconnect with his betrothed. And at this point they're still not married, and it all looks kind of peachy for a little while, but then old conflicts reappear, and there's kind of one final battle between the two clans that were at war to begin with, ending in the final conflict and the sort of resolution from that. I don't want to give too much away. It's a film if you didn't know too much about it going into it, like I didn't. It's worth watching like that. But if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. So I have to say that I really, really enjoyed this film. It was that you can see everything, the money that it took. You can see it on screen. There's loads of extras. The sets, the cinematography. It looks really, really good. I actually really like the feel of the film as well. It does have that epic feel to it. I quite like ARN. He's kind of stoic, to be honest. I mean, some people may argue he doesn't have much of a kind of a character as such, but I kind of felt he was more of a sort of, not exactly badass, but he's kind of this sort of fairly quiet character who doesn't necessarily, he wants peace more than anything, and he's not, but if you sort of, obviously if he needs to, then he'll strike back and with deadly force, because he's a great warrior, but he's certainly not going looking for trouble. But I actually quite liked his character. I thought he was really good, and he's a dead ringer for Chris Hemsworth. So if ever there's a replacement for Thor needed, this is the guy. Anyway, and there's the real thing here is that, I guess, the love story between ARN and Cecilia, and that's the sort of thing. So if you're kind of a bit of a hopeless romantic, but you like your sort of historical epics, then you're going to like this one. So a couple of things with this one. Now, this being really a Swedish film, most of the dialogue is going to be subtitled, but not everything. There are large portions of the film that are in English as well, mainly in the Holy Lands, but a lot of it is in Swedish, but there's also Arabic and some French as well. So a lot of it is going to be subtitled. So if a kind of a foreign language film kind of puts you off, then there you go. But I urge you to watch it because it's very, very good. And I actually quite like the fact that they're kind of speaking their native tongues and not everything is kind of, English, and basically, because it adds that kind of more authentic feel to it. And like I said, there was a fair amount of English speaking in it as well. So, you can just kind of just watch that without having to read. And I've got to say that the actor, who I'm not sure the guy's name because he's got a Swedish name, wouldn't try and pronounce it, but he did a great job in sort of performing all these different sort of languages and stuff like that. So hats off to him. He sort of sold me when he was speaking English and stuff. I don't think that's his native tongue. Anyway, so really fantastic looking film. Very much that epic feel. Great sets. Really fantastic cinematography. I thought the direction was good. I had no problem with the acting whatsoever. I thought that was all good. If I had to maybe pick a few faults in it, I would say it maybe is a little bit predictable. I have to be honest with you. There were areas where I thought, well, I was expecting that to happen ultimately. I guess the main criticism, and I have to say, is going to be the battles here. So if you're expecting loads of action, there is conflict in it, but when you do have battles, they're over within a matter of minutes. I guess there's 3 action sequences, I would say. There's one just like a one-on-one at the beginning of towards the beginning of the film, and then you have one sort of action scene in the Holy Land, and then one when he comes back home. There's actually 2 action scenes in the Holy Land, but one is just cut. You don't sort of see anything, if that makes sense. But the action you do see, as I say, the actual fighting on the screen is over fairly quickly. So, if you're kind of wanting one of these, like with loads of violence and action and stuff, you may be a little bit disappointed in that thing. And now, to be fair, I didn't mind. I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more on-screen battles, but I guess the sort of the budget can only go so far. But from what you did see, there was lots of extras, and it looked like it was gonna, there were big enough battles to make it look like it was an epic battle. Admittedly, they were quite short though. So that's the one thing. I have to say the first part of the film was a little bit slow and a little bit confusing as well, because the first kind of half an hour switches sort of timelines, if you know what I mean. So you kind of get flashbacks and it kind of goes forward, then it goes like further flashback. So, and because you don't know the characters all that well, first of all, in the beginning, that's a little bit disorientating, I think, first of all. And to be that first half an hour is really just set up for the characters, so that kind of dragged a little bit as well. They're relatively minor criticism, I've got to say, because overall, I really, really enjoyed this film, and I'm glad that I had the pleasure of watching it. And I have to say, this is one of those pleasant surprises that you sort of come across. And I urge you, if you're a kind of historical or fantasy film, or just like medieval action films, even though it's not all that actiony, to check this film out. So go see it. I'm going to give this one a 8.5 out of 10. It's a high praise indeed. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I suggest you go and check it out if you've not seen it. If you have seen it, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.